I don't know why, I see it as my calling to wake people up to this travesty. Because the reason that the United States has created the greatest leap in prosperity that the world has ever known, or will likely ever know, is because we had freedom. It was in our founding documents. And it wasn't just freedom of goods and services. It wasn't freedom to prosper, right? It was freedom of thought, which is free speech. And they are clamping down on that. And if we are not allowed to think, because we don't have freedom of speech, then we will be impoverished.
Welcome to Crossroads. I'm your host, Joshua Philipp, and today we're in Southern California with Sam Sorbo, actress and filmmaker. And Sam, it's a real pleasure having you on Crossroads.
Thank you so much.
And we're going to be talking today about her work in filmmaking and making moral films and discussing why you think that's needed and necessary. And so I understand you have a new movie coming, or new movie coming out.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
It's called Miracle in East Texas. It's a humorous film. It's a comedy about the East Texas oil strike. So it's historical as well.
You made a comedy about the East Texas oil strike?
I did, yes. It's historical. It's about these two scoundrels who were basically seducing widows into investing in their worthless oil scams. Oh, no. And then they accidentally strike oil. And they strike the biggest oil strike in the history of the world. True story. We tell it in a very humorous way, but it touches a little bit on, the history of oil, how great a product oil is, how it lifted people, entire communities out of poverty. It touches a little bit on that, but mainly it's just a lot of fun, has some good values in it. And it's kind of like the Blindside meets Green Book, because it's a period piece, it's a faith values film, but it's not like a full-on faith film, like a Christian film that a lot of people are making. We really wanted to thread the needle on that, to open it up to a broad audience, and we succeeded. It came out really great. Very excited about it.
And so when people think faith film, a lot of people, I could see people being like, oh, well, it's a Christian movie, I don't know if I want to see it.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Sometimes when you talk about faith films, it's people think narrow audience. What would you tell people who think that? So
initially, Christian films were difficult to sell because they lack talent. Talent in front of the camera, talent behind the camera, writing talent. They lacked a bunch of talent. And then we had The Blindside come out. It was the first film that threaded the needle, right? So it was a faith. It wasn't a faith-focused film, but it was a film about people of faith. People of the Christian faith. And so it really showed Christian values at work, just in the general public, right? And so it really appealed to the churchgoers, but it also had a very broad appeal. It did a massive box office, and it performed very well. And then there's a little film called What If that my husband did with Pureflix when...
Kevin Sorbo.
Kevin Sorbo.
Remember Hercules? 90s.
I'm Hercules.
Hercules. This is her. Yeah.
So he did a film called What If that I like to say was the first Christian, unabashedly Christian, Hollywood caliber film. It had great writers. They're the same writers who wrote God's Not Dead and actually the recent huge box office hit Unplanned. And it told a very Christian story. It had a conversion to faith. I mean, it was the whole deal. It had a great deal of talent behind it. And so it's a really good movie. And if you haven't seen it, you should go see it. Find it online somewhere. It's called What If. It's a great family movie, and it's fully Christian. And so to my mind, and I've been saying this for years and nobody's corrected me yet, that was really the first film where we proved you can make a Christian movie, a fully Christian movie, and it's still a really good movie. Because up until then, it was like church films, and they'd do them in the basement, and there was no money there, no continuity and no matching. The dialogue was crap, and it was just this lumbering sort of that nobody wanted to sit through. Then God's Not Dead came along. Also a film that my husband stars in, and it did gangbusters at the box office because Pureflix had figured out how to market a film. And they had a brilliant marketing campaign for that film. Everybody and his brother saw it 8 times because it was such a good, uplifting, and a Christian movie. That is sort of what opened the floodgates to, in a sense, to the Christians coming into Hollywood and saying, you know what, we're going to make Christian movies that are Hollywood caliber that will appeal to at least the deep church. Let's put it that way, right? And they're doing that very successfully. And we had a film come out 2 years ago called Let There Be Light that did very well at the box office. I had no money to promote it, and so the money that I did, we put to good use, and we promoted it well, and it did very well at the box office. It's streaming on Amazon. Let's see, at the time that God's Not Dead came out, Kevin and I went and saw a screening of Noah, but they hired an atheist director.
That's the one with like the giants and like
it's
basically like an action movie. Right?
It's basically Waterworld meets Transformers. Right? It's the rock transformer guys with a bunch of water. And so Kevin and I went and saw that at a screening for Pepperdine, actually. And they had one of the producers come, and he was apparently the token Christian producer on the film or something.
The one that got let into Hollywood still?
I don't know. And he came and he made a presentation to everybody, basically apologized. I hope you're not expecting to see, the real biblical story of Noah. And we're all like, yeah, that's exactly what we're hoping to see.
Well, that story? Well, we named it that.
We named it that.
And then we made something else up.
But then we told a completely different story. And somebody after the screening, here's the thing. I enjoyed that movie because right at the beginning, I went, oh, they're not telling the story of Noah. That's not what this is at all. It's a Transformer movie with rock people,
Yeah, there you go.
Somebody stood up at the end.
Managing expectations.
Right.
Yeah. So somebody stood up at the end.
And he asked this question of the Christian producer, and he kind of introduced himself. I'm the token Christian on the thing, right? So with the success of God's Not Dead, and now we see Noah coming out, do you think that Hollywood is going to get in the game of producing faith-based content? And the guy answered really what I consider a very intellectually honest answer. And he said, I think Hollywood is going to continue to make blockbusters because that's what they do well. And I think that the independent filmmakers are going to be making the faith-based films because that's what they do well. You cannot create something that you don't understand. It seems to me that Hollywood in general does not understand faith. And the reason I say that is because I created a faith-based television series a couple years ago, and we shopped it around, eventually sold it to NBC and Sony, which was great. They shelved it for whatever reason. But at the time, we went to another studio, and we're talking with a studio head there. And she said to my husband, I understand that there is a faith audience, and that they're your audience, and they love you, and they follow you. And I understand, therefore, that there's a market for this kind of product. I just don't understand why.
Really?
She said, my faith is over here. And if they can't understand the market, they won't cater to that market. Write what you know, sell what you know.
Well, and we're seeing an interesting state in Hollywood right now. We're seeing a few things. People don't seem to be interested in going to the movie theater as much as they used to be. We have all these streaming services that are making pretty good movies or series that are getting a lot more attention than some of the big blockbusters.
Right.
We're seeing independent films being able to access those platforms. And we're seeing a lot of the big produced, very expensive Hollywood films completely bomb. There seems to be a big backlash against the politically correct themes that are putting in films. Mm-hmm. People seem to be either sick of it or just generally annoyed by it. And there's an interesting, I think, dynamic in films too, which is PG films, in other words, family films that have good, decent values at least.
G, right?
Yeah, G, that's right. They tend to do really well.
Yes.
Whereas R-rated films actually typically don't do as well.
Right.
And so it's interesting that Hollywood chooses to make the films that they know aren't going to make as much money. Why do they do that over the G-rated or, value-based films?
I think I have the answer that I've come up with. This is my assumption, right? So it's not like I live in those circles and I'm inside their heads and I know exactly why they're making the decisions they're making. But it seems to me that the studios can afford to make the great big blockbuster. and they put in a few $100 million into a great big blockbuster, and it does $1 billion worldwide. And the Avengers 87 or whatever, I'm sorry, I don't even follow those movies,
but
but
of them now, yeah.
you know, and my kids are like, what, Thanos, Mom? You know, I'm like, I don't know who that is. So they do those, and so they're flush. And then for the smaller films where they're not devoting $100+ million, they can do their pet projects. Perhaps they see the world a certain way. What's interesting to me is that the youngest generation that's just coming out now and maybe entering college, maybe graduating college, but maybe younger than that. So I have an 18-year-old, and he's a member of this sort of Gen Z. They seem to be a lot more conservative-minded than the Gen Y or Gen X or, you know, baby boomer, not baby boomers, what came after baby boomers?
Millennials.
Millennials, thank you. I banished the word from my head, but it's hard to come up. And the reason is because the millennials have been so convincing about political correctness, which is completely a lie. Like, it's a completely incorrect, it's not a proper view of the world. That I think that the youth, because youth tends to be rebellious, they're going, you know what you can do with your political correctness? I've got a place where you can stick it. And that's what we're seeing with the memes that are coming out. Mm-hmm. I'll mention particularly the Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself meme, which is
everyone's heard it by this point.
Enormous, and it's not dying. Yeah. And my son likes to say it's lived longer than he did in jail.
Oh.
And there's a sense of humor because they don't like that that people are trying to rob them of their sense of humor, which is what the left tries to do. The left cannot stand ridicule because it is not truthful. If it were truthful and you made fun of it, it would only be marginally funny. But you can make fun of, so you can totally ridicule something that's a lie purporting to be the truth. There's a fight that's going on right now, and I don't know how it's going to turn out. But you asked about Hollywood.
Yes.
I think that the person who said to me, I don't understand faith. I don't understand why people have faith, right? If they're in charge, they're not going to make a movie that doesn't please them. I only make movies that I'm happy with. I would never make a horror film. I'm totally uninterested in making a horror film. I don't see the value in making a horror film. They see value in that. So that's what they will try to create, whether it makes money or not. I don't know who it is, but there's several of these stories. Head of a studio basically drives the studio into the ground before they fire him because he can. And he's got a golden parachute, so he walks away with $60 million as severance pay or whatever, right? Because they can. And in Hollywood, oftentimes people fail upwardly.
Well, and that's an interesting thing. And that ties into a lot of what you get into in your films, I think. Now, I know you've written before about what makes a good film. And you've written before about the idea that a lot of good Hollywood films are conservative without even knowing it. That the ideas of, say, self-improvement, the ideas of pulling yourself out of a difficult state,
right?
The types of trials we face and how we deal with those trials. Whereas we can think of the leftist standpoint as being, handed something you didn't necessarily earn. I mean, I'm really generalizing here, but given something you didn't earn, this whole pandering to, the world is just wrong based on things beyond your control, essentially. And so just give up and government will take care of you.
Yes.
So, you shouldn't try to fight for your rights and, do things yourself. You should just petition the government office to solve the problem for you. Right? What a fun movie that would be, right?
This is something that I talk about because, how do I put this? One of my focuses is education. So I do film and education. And with the education, we are churning out little socialists because our education system is entirely corrupted at this point. It's a bureaucracy that fails. And everybody knows that it fails, and no one is willing to, no one. Very few people are willing to say, wait a minute, why would I want to put my pride and joy, my young child, into a system that everybody thinks is failing, and is failing? We're 27th in the world. We're the United States of America. That's not a good number, right? After the shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, The kids marched on Washington. Fix this. Washington had nothing to do with Marjory Stoneman Douglas or the shooting or anything, really, literally anything down there. But they've been taught that they should always petition the government for everything.
Personal is political.
And it's working. No, but I'm just saying it's go to the government. Whatever you need, just go to the government. At the same time, you said personal is political. At the same time that we're being taught not to discuss politics. Don't discuss politics. Right? Mm-hmm. Because that's politically incorrect. Why don't they want us discussing politics? Because in the exchange, wealth is created. In the free exchange of anything, wealth is generated. Okay? So in the free exchange of goods and services, wealth is generated. In the free exchange of ideas, knowledge and wealth is generated. And they are in the business of impoverishing people. And so if they can't impoverish us with physical goods and services, which of course they're trying to do, they will impoverish us with knowledge. And that's why you'll see on college campuses, you see no free speech. They want to silence free speech. They don't want us discussing anything that has to do with politics. Don't discuss abortion. Why is abortion a political issue? Because they can win. The moment they make it political, it's like taboo to talk about it. It's not political, it's moral. It's a moral issue. A little bit of a health issue, maybe, sort of, sometimes, a little bit. But it's not it shouldn't be a political issue. But the moment it was politicized, it became taboo to talk about it. I don't know why. I see it as my calling to wake people up to this travesty. Because the reason that the United States has created the greatest leap in prosperity that the world has ever known, or will likely ever know, is because we had freedom. That was in our founding documents. And it wasn't just freedom of goods and services. It wasn't freedom to prosper, right? It was freedom of thought, which is free speech. And they are clamping down on that. And if we are not allowed to think, because we don't have freedom of speech, then we will be impoverished in a spiritual way. I mean, pretty soon we won't be allowed to share our faith.
Well,
and it's taboo to share your faith, right? It's like, oh, you're a Christian. Okay, well, Or, I remember I asked somebody, did they want to come to church with me? And it was like, yeah, I can't believe you asked me. Well, yeah, I'm sorry. My freedom of speech.
Well, we've seen this in Hollywood, the restriction of free speech and of faith. There are a lot of people in Hollywood, a lot of actors and so on, who are not willing to say publicly what their beliefs are.
Well, because okay. We have freedom not to speak too, right? Mm-hmm. So you're talking about the pressure that's put upon people. It's not really you're not allowed to say it. It's just that if you do, you'll reap the consequences.
Which is you'll never work in the industry again unless you're a big enough name, basically.
That's correct.
And I know you and your husband have faced some of that. Can you tell us about what you've gone through and what that environment is like?
That environment exists, and it makes things difficult or more challenging. But we are fervent believers in freedom, in everybody's ability to exchange thoughts. That's what this is about. And so we won't step down from that. We won't back away from that. And we want to make sure that stays something that we can have in this nation.
It takes a lot of bravery to do your own thing.
Yeah, it's stupidity. It's that old thing where if I'd known then what I know now, I probably never would have started, right? It's because it's hard.
Yeah.
But it's worth it. What's amazing is it's actually a gift to be able to fight for what you believe in, to stand for what you believe in, despite the naysayers. It's actually a gift. And if life were easy, it wouldn't be worth it, right? Mm-hmm. Nothing easy is ever really worth doing. It's got to have a challenge to it. So
that's true, and that's again a very conservative concept. The freedom to fail, as funny as that is, and hear me out, right? You'll find a lot of the top CEOs and a lot of people who are most successful in life have failed a whole lot of times before they got there. And a system that allows you to fail is also one that allows you to succeed. Because
Exactly.
without the ability to fail, you don't see what doesn't work. And it's when you get back up and you say, okay, I know what I did wrong.
Right.
That's the hero's journey.
Right.
That's going to the belly of the whale
Right.
and coming out and a better person and being willing to still take on the challenge.
So Ken Robinson did a TED Talk years ago. It's got like 65 million views. And the first part of the TED Talk, he talks about the death of creativity and how our schools have completely killed creativity because creativity is only fomented in the petri dish of failure. Okay? If you're not allowed to fail, you won't try something new. You have to be allowed that. And if you talk to Michael Jordan, what made him so great? He failed over and over again. In fact, he was kicked off the basketball team at one point. Michael Jordan, okay? So the problem with Ken Robinson's talk is his antidote is also incorrect, sadly, because he still believes that the school is the way to get it done. But the schools are outdated. They were formed basically on the assembly line technique that every child just needs a few widgets put in them, and then they will turn out to be a worthwhile citizen. The education really should focus on forming the values and the moral character of the individual more than just throwing a bunch of knowledge into them and having them regurgitate it, right? But this idea that it kills creativity because it doesn't encourage creativity as much as it encourages the correct answer on the test. And they're doing away with many of the more creative ventures like music and art and all of that stuff. You know, Hollywood initially was considerably conservative. And most of the filmmakers, I mean, we made during World War II, we made a bunch of movies about how great the United States was and how bad the evil enemy was and all of that stuff, right? So nationalist, yeah, you name it, right? And I would say in the 60s, there was a big transition that came. And then all of a sudden we needed a rating system for the films, which we never needed before. So, and if you think that's the limit of the debauchery, no, it keeps going. And now I think conservatives have finally woken up and they're saying, wait a minute, especially in the schools. So yes, in cinema and entertainment, let's say, they've said, wait a minute, we need the rating system and we need to be a little bit more protective even with protections online and protections on streaming services and that kind of stuff. I don't think that they've woken up with what's happening in the schools. And what's happening in the schools is, quite frankly, that they are trying to sell our children pornography and they're basically grooming our children. So you've heard about human trafficking and grooming. That's really what's happening in our schools today, in our public schools.
And just to emphasize this, yeah, and I've working at a newspaper, we see this stuff. Some of the guides they're giving to little kids are so pornographic and weird that I almost feel bad. I almost feel dirty even talking about
Right.
them.
I try to cover it on the radio, and it's like, okay, so I'm going to cover this, but there are certain words that I just don't feel like saying right now. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have to use your imagination, but it is as bad as you think. It's probably worse. So Teen Vogue on Christmas gave out or published a guide to anal sex. And if you don't want to, you don't have to, but you should try it at least once. I mean, seriously, with all the wording in it and all of the graphic details and the Teen Vogue. So that's marketed to preteen and young teens. Okay.
And so when we get into, you said schools are grooming kids.
It's
a pretty big statement.
I know, but some of the curriculum talks about lubrication. Okay? Fifth graders.
And for even younger kids, they're even talking about like self-touch and
yes,
things like
in
this.
kindergarten and first grade. For instance, they get into gay marriage. Okay? Now here's the thing. You can talk about that as an institution, marriage as an institution, what makes up a family, and frankly, that have at it, right? I disagree with it, but have at it. But when you talk about how they behave with each other and that kind of thing, that's grooming.
Well, then that's when you get into the discussion of values It's interesting that they restrict values on one side and tell them they can't talk about what their values are, especially when it comes to Christians and religious people. Can't talk about your values, it doesn't fit. But they push their own values.
Of course.
Which oftentimes go against the values of the religious base
Right.
in the country.
Here's the thing. If there is a value, it is limiting. So you can't have a limitless value because a value is a judgment call. So the judgment is in the value. So you can't say don't be judgmental but have values, right? Values is you're making a hierarchy of what is more important and what is less important based on whatever your criteria are. But you can't criticize me for having my criteria if you're imposing your criteria. And yet that is the conundrum, right? That's the hypocrisy.
Well, and this is also the base talking about tolerance.
Right, right. Except for what you stand for and stuff. So
tolerance for what I believe in. But
Right.
I don't know about you.
Right. But here's the good news. You've got a generation plus, maybe, right? That has that sort of mindset. And they're finding that it's not workable in the real world because it doesn't deal with truth. It is untruthful. It is an untruthful value system that they've been handed in school. You've got a lot of people out there struggling to make sense of the world because they've been taught complete untruths. And now you have a generation that's going, hold on, I'm seeing that, but that looks like cray-cray to me. Not interested in that. Give me my memes. And I'll tell you something, entertainment is changing. And I'm frankly, luckily as an outsider, like I'm in a position to look at that and hopefully take advantage of the shift. But it is an enormous shift because everybody's making their own content. And the other night I was with friends and we put TikTok and YouTube up on the TV, and I've never really done this, or I haven't done it a lot. And we sat for like an hour and a half looking at TikTok and YouTube. Very entertaining. The appeal is even higher because it's a roulette wheel. It's sort of, not that I condone gambling, but gambling is attractive to people because you just don't know. Are you going to win? Are you going to lose? And so you go on TikTok, and my son is huge on TikTok right now. I don't know how he's done it. It's crazy. And yes, some of them are raunchy, but typically, from what I can tell, is the ones that you like inform the app what to feed you. So as long as you're not going looking at bad videos, you're not going to see a bunch of bad videos, right? Nasty is what I mean. But every so often, and more often than you might think, you see a video that's hilarious, that's entertaining. And it's very short, so your investment is very limited, but you're having so much fun. And we literally sat there for an hour and a half before we realized, oh my gosh, it's been an hour and a half. And we enjoyed ourselves. We saw them make elephant toothpaste. It's a huge video right now that's trending.
Elephant toothpaste.
You know what elephant toothpaste is?
No.
Oh, like every homeschooler knows what elephant toothpaste is because it's when you combine, did you ever make a volcano?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
vinegar and baking soda.
there you go.
Yeah.
So you combine, so they made the world's largest elephant toothpaste. And they had an enormous vat of what I can only imagine was the baking soda, and then I think they had a great big bucket of vinegar, and they poured it in, and it overflowed and went into the neighbor's yard and down the street, like enormous. We watched it like 6 times because it was so phenomenal, and that's entertaining. Why? I'll tell you why. Because when I turn on the TV, it's nothing but crap. There's so much crap out there. I try to go on and catch up on like some of the new stuff that's coming around, and I inevitably turn it off. Why? Because it's pornographic. Like the stuff that they're putting out that they're purporting is like fun, entertaining stuff. I'm going, that's not interesting to me. It's just not interesting. And that requires an investment.
And not only that, and I think this is why a lot of the younger generations now are rebelling against a lot of the political correctness, because it's restrictive.
Right.
It's restrictive. It's condescending. It's saying that there are certain traits that if you have, whether it be your race, your gender, or whatever, that you are automatically part of the privileged or evil class.
Right.
And if you don't like it, well, you're twice as bad.
Right. This is like the French Revolution. This is like a soft French Revolution. Because what happens is, and this is what we're seeing, and this is why it's so exciting, and why the young people are seeing that, and they're going, I don't know any part of that, is because the snake is starting to eat its own tail.
And we've seen it, we see it, yeah.
And frankly, I'm excited by that, because people will wake up to that. And they'll go, wait a minute. So AOC came out with the Green New Deal, and everybody's like, oh, the Green New Deal, it's going to make the earth a green place. What? No, you'll be deprived of oil. And if you don't like oil, give me your cell phone and take off all your clothes. And I don't know how you're going to get home tonight, because without oil, you have nothing.
And they're going
to
bulldoze every building in the country and rebuild it.
Right.
Because that's somehow a good idea.
And so the youth are waking up and they're going, wait a minute, that's not fun. I don't think that's a good idea. Let's do something else.
And so in terms of what is it that makes an entertaining movie or video, in your opinion?
Oh, to me, it's hope. It's an uplifting story. It doesn't have to be a message, but it's an uplifting story. So when you leave the theater, you feel like you can be a better person. And that's really what we should be striving for, all of us. We should be striving for being a better person tomorrow than we were today. And if that's what you're doing, then you are finding true joy. Because honestly, what is the meaning of life? This is what I don't understand about people who don't have faith. There's no meaning in their life. Because when it's done, it's just a black hole. So what are you even, why are you bothering? Well, I don't mean to be disturbing.
Well, this is a huge part of therapy. Is when people don't feel that they have a meaning or a purpose, they get depressed.
Right.
I read a great book recently. It was Man's Search for Meaning. It was this Holocaust survivor talking about how one of the things he observed in these concentration camps is when people lost a sense of meaning, they died.
If you're under a great deal of stress, then you give up, because what's the point? And it's too hard. It's just too hard. You know what? Life is hard. Life is hard. And if you want to make life better for yourself, find your purpose. And your purpose ought to include other people. Your purpose ought to be about other people, because if it's self-focused, it won't be fulfilling in the long run.
Well, and the other side too is how you deal with your hardships. Because everyone has their hardships.
If you have meaning in your life, then it's like, I got to get through this, because I got to get to the other end, because I got to do that thing that has meaning.
Which is what makes a good movie too, in my
Correct.
opinion, right?
We've come full circle.
There we go.
No, but it's true. Yeah. And that's why those are the stories that I want to tell. And particularly, my goal is to focus on true stories, because I like to be able to tell the audience, like Miracle in East Texas, that this actually happened.
In other words,
these people actually existed.
People actually went through this.
Yes.
And it's something that is plausible and something you can relate to, because hey,
it might not be plausible.
Yeah.
Oftentimes reality is fairly implausible. I can't believe that just happened, right? It doesn't have to be plausible. It just has to be a really great story, and there are a ton of them out there. The thing that I was disappointed with, the Louis Zamperini story, which I think they made the second part of that, but the first part, Unbroken, it didn't tell anything about his faith journey afterwards. So it really was just focused on this guy who was so strong-willed that he got through the war and horrible torture and made it back home. Okay. You know the end of that story?
I do not.
He found God. He became a Christian because he got back home and he dealt with PTS so badly that he completely cracked up and became an alcoholic. And then he went to a Billy Graham thing and was saved. Miraculously. That's a story worth telling. That he was saved miraculously. And then he realized it had all been worth it, because he was recreated as an overcoming person who was valiant. And he found purpose for his life. And he went back to Japan, and he forgave the gentleman who tortured him, who refused to meet him. And the man who tortured him, who refused to meet him, died a very sad man. Because his purpose had been torturing people. But malevolence exists. To deny it is lunacy. The left wants to deny that malevolence exists. The left wants to convince us that if we just put our trust in government, because people are fallible, and they're selfish, and they make mistakes, and they're bad, and so don't trust the free market, because then people run the free market and they do stuff and they bad people, right? Put all your faith in government. Who runs government? People who are bad and fallible and malevolent, and right? Why would I give them power?
And that's the other side too, is if you have a system where the government controls everything, the people who are malevolent are going to go into the position that allows them to make the most profit possible.
Of course.
They're going to go into the government.
Of course.
Which we've seen repeated over and over.
Yes.
But there's an interesting point about the promise to eliminate suffering from the
Right.
world. There's a great book by, what's it called? A guy named Thomas Molnar wrote a book called Utopia, the Perennial Heresy. And he explains how, looking at throughout history, that it's always the people who believe that they can eliminate evil from the world who end up becoming the forces of evil in the world.
Yeah, I don't think they believe it for a minute. I think they're just very good at convincing other people that they can. I mean, Bernie Sanders has convinced people that he is a magnanimous person who just wants the best for everybody. And he was asked in a town hall, why haven't you given more in taxes? You believe in raising taxes. And his answer is, why haven't you? Well, I don't believe in raising taxes, but you do. Why haven't you? You're a millionaire. You're part of the 1% now. Why don't you? Because I'm a hypocrite. But of course he's not going to say that. And he's convinced a whole bunch of people that he's not a hypocrite. But if they would just open their eyes and examine the evidence, right? But they don't examine the evidence. Why? Because they've been taught to make the decision, then close their ears and close their eyes. Why? That's what we teach in school. That's why we need to rethink the way we educate, and our definition of education, we need to completely rethink it.
And what do you think should be done in terms of what you would like to see happen with the education system?
I would like to see the homeschool model broader. I would like to see teachers, specifically Christian teachers who are disillusioned with Common Core and the other stuff that's coming down the pike. I would like to see them step out, hang out a shingle, and become educators for other people's children, and do it on their own. And I've encouraged a number of people to do that already, and they're doing it successfully. And I know people who wanted to home educate, didn't have the wherewithal to do it, would have to send their children to private school because they lived in a horrible school district, and they decided to hire retired school teachers, give them the curriculum that they wanted their children to learn, and they hired retired school teachers as tutors for their kids and homeschooled their kids that way. Like, there's a lot of different ways. This is what I'd like to see. I would like to see entrepreneurship in education. That's what I would like to see. Because I believe in the success of the United States, and the foundations of our success were laid at the free market. So our founders were all home educated. And they understood that in the free exchange of ideas, wealth is generated. And let's allow everybody that access to that wealth. What you have is you have a number of people who are raised to believe that they will never have access to that wealth. And so they seek to limit everybody's access. And they want everything to be fair. Run when you hear that word fair.
Well, and they do the same thing with ideas.
Right, and they want to do it with ideas.
They want to run it all, and no one else can have any say in it.
Right, so I would like to see entrepreneurship re-enter education, and the great news is it already is. Because YouTube, you can learn anything on YouTube now, and it's free. It's insane. This is a phenomenal economy of ideas. That's for the most part still a free market. So my son wants to learn. He wants to dehydrate food. I can't explain it, and so he went online and he learned how to make his own dehydrator, and so that's what he's going to do. And he wants to learn. My daughter's an artist, and she wants to learn how to draw noses, and so she goes online and she studies how to draw noses. This is amazing. So as a parent, you need to know it's all available, and all you want to do is try to guide and focus the natural curiosity that's in your child. But I don't know if you remember, in school, it killed my curiosity, and I hated learning.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
And that's the last thing we want for.
I was a terrible student.
And okay, I was a good student.
Okay.
And it's the last thing you want for your child, is for them to be robbed of that natural curiosity and for that desire to learn to be extinguished, which is what our schools are doing today.
There's a really interesting case that ties in a lot to even the school shootings and school violence. I can't remember the year, it was a long time ago. It was the case of Leopold versus Loeb. There were two kids, very well educated kids, geniuses, going to a very, well-respected school, who decided to commit the perfect crime. And they picked up one of the kid's cousins from school, and they murdered him. And then one of the kids dropped his glasses. And they would never have found who committed it were it not for the fact that they found his glasses and he had a very rare prescription. But the real interesting part came up in the discussion afterwards. Because one of the cultural discussions that came about from that case is how can these kids who had everything given to them in this world, who were wealthy, who were well educated, who were, overachievers, do something so horrific? And they said, well, it's because the school system taught them that there is no God. It taught them there's no such thing as...
Who said that?
This was the cultural discussion at that time.
Oh, yeah.
They said they've taught them there's no such thing as right and wrong. So why should they care about doing right or wrong?
So, in fact, that's part of the core of my message. It's worse than that. The school system has taught them that they are accidents of nature, and that they themselves have no value. And if they have no value, then, gosh darn it, nobody else has any value. And therefore, if I kill somebody, there's no value in that either. So I will do whatever I want. I remember having this discussion when shortly after college, I was talking with a young man who was just newly graduated and had already been very successful in business. And he said to me, I'm trying to figure out whether I should be good or evil. What's going to be more interesting for me? And so he recognized that there was good and evil, but he didn't recognize the moral compulsion to be good. It so frightened me when I heard that, because I was raised with morals even though I was raised without God. And we all know that morals exist, right? It's that little voice inside you that understands the word fair. Well, that's not fair because he got something that I didn't get or whatever, right? It's that little voice, and you know that their values do exist. There's a hierarchy, and we value different things. And same thing with the Columbine students. And one of them was wearing a Darwin T-shirt, whatever, an evolution T-shirt when they committed the crime at Columbine.
And people who forgot, they were asking kids, do you believe in God? And if they said yes, they shot them.
Right. We need to wake up. I mean, it's hard for me to say this, but parents who believe in God and who want their children to have that knowledge, it's not like faith, it's knowledge. I know, right? Parents who are strong in their convictions, I don't understand why they would send their children into a school system that teaches the exact opposite of that. Because they teach in our schools, they are teaching that the Bible is a collection of fairy tales. It is not. It is the greatest history book ever written. It is a history book. It is a book of historical events that are historically accurate, that are all accounted, that have never been disproven. Okay? In all the time that they've had to disprove the Bible, they have not succeeded. And yet the school is teaching it that, and here's the problem. Here's the real conundrum for parents. You send your child there, and you're telling your child, we go to church one day a week, or what, yes, I believe in God. And the child learns this from the school, and they think you're the idiot. And you hope to maintain the authority in your own home? No. And we're sending them like sheep to the slaughter. It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart because they're being robbed not just of their faith, they're being robbed of truth, because now they know a lie, right? They believe a lie. What are they going to do with themselves for the rest of their lives? How can they admit to themselves that they got conned by a lie? I know it took me a long time to figure it out. And then I went, oh, so that was a lie. And I threw it away. But a lot of people don't do that easily. They just can't. So you're setting your children up. So, okay, find a small Christian school. Find something else, but not the public school. And then I have parents say, well, the teacher's really good. You go to your public school for kindergarten, and you've never met this teacher, and you literally leave your child in the hands of a stranger. How many babysitters, what was the interview process for the babysitters for your kids, right? And you don't even apply that because you trust the government has picked a teacher who was that good somehow.
Well, it's even worse now where the government's picking the curriculum for the teacher.
Exactly, and telling the teacher exactly what to do. Right.
Yeah.
I feel like I discovered the secret sauce or something when I decided to home educate. And it was a hard decision for me because we moved here for the schools. And my
To
son went
California,
to,
yeah.
yep, and my son went to a really good public school, okay? I didn't realize that first day when I handed him off to the first grade teacher that everybody adored, because I had no idea who she was. I didn't think, oh, I'm just turning my child over to have his brain molded by a complete stranger whose values I don't know. Turns out we shared a lot of the same values, and it was a nice experience for him. And then he got to second grade, and I really liked the teacher, and it was a disaster. It was just a disaster, the whole class. This isn't working. What can I do to fix it? And I was one of the guilty parents. I was at the school all the time helping out and teaching art and taking kids and grading papers and helping clean up, And I started thinking, there's got to be a better way. And I considered home education, and it was so scary. The reason it's scary is because you've been taught by the education system that you can't do it. Think of all the things that you know you can't do. And then think of all the things that you thought you couldn't do that you do now. Like buy a house. I can't buy a house. I don't know the first thing about buying a house. You do now. If you've bought a house, you just went out and learned it. That's how learning works. You just grab the bull by the horns and you start learning, right? And it's intrinsic. We know how to do it. But in the system, they teach you that you only know these things. And you've passed that test, and so you know that now. And so to the exclusion of everything else, that's sort of the general equation.
It's interesting. This is kind of where faith comes in.
Yes.
The ability to venture into the unknown.
Yes.
To believe
Yes.
you can do something that you don't currently understand.
Yes. Yeah. And it is a faith. That's why it's a spiritual thing. That's why people who don't have faith, I just don't know how they do anything. Like they just rely on themselves. What a tremendous burden of responsibility that must be, right? So I ventured out in faith. And then I wrote my book, They're Your Kids. And the farther out of the education system I went, or by time, the more sort of epiphanies that I had about how wrong it was and how abused I'd been. And so now, like I'm just on a mission to empower parents, because we're so unempowered, we're so defused, in a sense, to teach our own children, to continue parenting after the age of 5. What is it about the age of 5 that all of a sudden you're inadequate? Now the professional has to take over. And what's great is we're seeing that our universities are failing because we see all these bribery cases now. There's a university that just, they caught a kid whose parents had bribed his way in. They're actually considering rescinding his degree. But the degree's worthless anyway, let's face it. We've proven that already.
And a lot of millennials especially are starting to see that right now.
Right. And the youth are coming up and they're going, wait, I don't want to live in my parents' basement. Is that the recipe to live in my parents' basement? Why would I want to do that? And because there's so much available online, it's sort of like, why would you give Harvard $250,000 for a degree whose value we're not really sure of anymore? And to get you what? Because a college degree is what a high school diploma was. And guess what? When you get to high school, when you get to college, you have to learn the stuff that they should have taught you in high school. This is the reports that are coming back, right? Kids don't know how to write an essay. You know, our founders, in our founders' age, you went to Harvard at age 12, fluent in Latin and Greek, as well as English, okay? So,
and that was homeschool. A lot of
it was all basically it was all homeschool. There wasn't like a school system. So we have been limited in our ability to dream for ourselves and for our children by our education, the way that we were brought up, and it's too bad. But we can change it, and we can change the culture. And how do we change the culture? The same way they change the culture. We enter the culture. So we get on our phones and we get into social media, which strangely is oddly turning now more conservative, and we just speak the truth. Here's the great thing, is the truth will prevail because it's the truth. It's unassailable. When you know something that's unassailable, don't try to sell me fiction. Common Core is fiction. Common Core is weird, stupid, magic pornography. Like, it's weird stuff in Common Core.
Yeah, if you try and do the math.
It's in my book.
try and do some Common Core math. You'll see real quick.
The Common Core math is in my book. Breaks my heart because I love math. And what they've done is they've changed math so that it doesn't make sense anymore. So while Common Core math, if you figure out the algorithms and you know how it works, you can make it work, it doesn't make sense of math. And math is what? Logic. So they are working at destroying logic. Why? So you can't think for yourself anymore. It's so nefarious. It's vicious. So, but look, I'm making films to breathe life into the culture, to breathe hope into the culture, love, forgiveness, the Christian values that were the foundations of this nation, right? And I'm urging people who want entertainment, go find that and pay for that, and be very careful about what else you're purchasing with your dollars. Think twice about that, because we need to be more astute. We need to be more with our eyes on the prize. What do we want for the future? What do we want for our children? Do we want a world where there is no truth? Obviously, there's always truth, but do we want a world where you can't speak the truth? Shh, mum's the word. Where you can't speak your mind? No, of course not. Where you're limited in your potential? No. We want our children, anybody who says that they don't want their child to succeed, like, right? It's crazy. You want your child to succeed? There's a pathway for that.
If you were to have people take one message from your work and what you're trying to do, what do you hope to get across?
That there is hope. And that if you can put your faith in the hope, don't be afraid to speak the truth. People ask me why I made that film. I conceived that film and I brought it to fruition, and it's very much my soul. I made that film to give people hope. And we are fighting a culture war right now that wishes to remove hope. Of course, hope is the product of our faith, right? But there's hope beyond that. There's hope that surrounds that, even if you're not a Christian, obviously, because there's life, right? And there's always hope that you find the truth, right? So even if you've been dismayed, there's hope. And we are living in a very there's a lot of hopelessness. The messaging is very negative. Look at people who are distraught over a president who has given us the highest stock market we've ever achieved. He's accomplished so much for everyone. He's stating values for everyone, and yet they're convinced that he's evil, and therefore they can't see anything good that he's done or any. He's done some bad things too, right? He's not the Messiah, right? Nobody's perfect, and all of the doomsayers, none of that has come to pass. I guess that's my point. Is with all of the negativity, and he was going to start World War III, and he was going to do this, and he was going to destroy the economy, and everything was going to fall apart. And I'm going, okay, so it's been 3 years. Where is that prediction? They're still somehow saying, oh no, it's coming. I'm like, I'm not convinced it's coming. I think we're going to be okay. I think there's hope. I guess that's the message. I'd like people to feel freer to speak. I really want people to feel free to speak. I really believe in the free exchange of ideas because it's wealth generating for everybody. When I get to hear Bernie Sanders speak, not that he has new ideas, right? I know the ideas that he has. But honestly, every once in a while, somebody on the left has an idea and it sparks something, and I go, oh, okay. And I gain from it. So I don't want them to shut up. Not like they want me to shut up. That's not and that's not the conservative viewpoint either. Conservatives don't want to shut people up. They want that because the truth can win. And that's all I seek. I seek the truth. Give me the truth. Knowledge is power, right? The knowledge that the baby in the womb is a baby that is human, right, has created a pro-life generation now because of 4D ultrasound or 3D ultrasounds, 4D ultrasounds, and heartbeat, and all of the technology that we have to now prove. How did we ever believe it wasn't a baby? Like I didn't give birth to a toaster. It's not like it could be anything else. And I see abortion going down in my lifetime. To me, nothing could make me happier because that is slavery, like the Berlin Wall coming down. So we have Planned Parenthood teaching our children. They have been invited into classrooms in public schools. They've been invited into the Girl Scouts. And they are very busy trying to convince young women that they should have all the sex that they want. Even if they don't want it, they should try things that they don't necessarily like. Like, they should engage as early as possible. And the reason for that is because the earlier that you can get a young person as a customer of Planned Parenthood, the more secure you will hold them for life. How do you walk back from doing that? That unspeakable thing, harm to another human being. If you believe in the sovereignty of the individual, which is the foundational value of this nation, is the sovereignty of the individual. Because they told us that we shouldn't talk about it, that it was a political issue. And I'm here to say it's absolutely not that. It is something that should be on the forefront of everybody's discussion all the time, because it is a travesty what we've done to this nation. And it is enslaving, because it is a thought that enslaves. It's an action that enslaves. Young women who have had abortions have such a hard time, and that's being kept quiet. Just like people who were transgendered and transgendered back because it didn't work, because it's a spiritual problem and it's a physical solution, and a physical solution can never solve a spiritual problem. And those people are being silenced. They're not allowed to tell their stories. It's very difficult for them to tell their stories. And they should be allowed to tell their stories. But shout your abortion. Shout your abortion. We just had the Golden Globes. And the whole room applauded Michelle Williams, saying, if I hadn't had the chance to make that choice, I wouldn't have this trophy. No trophy is worth the life of a child. It's unfathomable. So yes, it's another form of slavery. Absolutely.
Well, Sam, thanks again.
Yeah.
Real pleasure at Crossroads. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Everyone, please remember to like and subscribe. Click that notification bell. You'll see our videos when they're up. See you next time.